Welcome to Tao Press. My name is Jonathan Schell, L.Ac, and I would like to read Chapter 1 of my new novel, The Coiled Needle, Yin Water, True Stories of a Demonologist, a novel. Chapter 1. Rain, coming down so hard that it feels like it is going to pierce the windshield of my SUV. They are saying that it is the wettest February on record. But that is what it is like in Portland, Oregon. There will always be another record to break for how much it rains. I smoke a cigarette, Nat Sherman MCD to be exact, and I drive to the office. It is another day in the routine, treating patients and dealing with the seen and unseen. Who am I? My name is Roland Pearce, and odd as it might seem, I am an acupuncturist. Trust me. I have heard it 1,000 times before. Pierce, as in someone who pierces people with needles? Yes, yes, yes. No more odd than an orthodontist with the last name of Wrench or a metal worker with the last name of Smith. So have your chuckle, and we can move on. 1 month ago, Donald Trump took the office of President of the United States. And since then, the dark side has been stirring. Dark side, you ask? As in the Sith? No, not that bad, but as in the opposite of the forces of light. The analogy to the Jedi might be pertinent if Star Wars were real, but let us just say that there has been a war bubbling under the surface of reality for millennia. This war is not Earth-based only, but spans the entirety of this universe, and the dimensions that rise and fall from it. There has always been a light, and always been the dark, and many layers of gray in between. This is the plane that we live in, duality. Yin, yang, love, hate, black, white, Christian, Muslim, gay, straight, etc. The duality of division is the antithesis of unity, togetherness, and wholeness. These labels divide us. The anger, rage, depression, and despair, etc. These are all things the dark side feeds on. The expression of these emotions sends shockwaves through the terrasphere, or the sphere of the earth, that can be felt both near and far. Like blood in the water, the emotional chaos draws the things that feed on it. These things can be seen by someone who has been trained to see, or by someone with inherent gifts of sight, or simply by the average person who is willing to analyze the patterns. So I can tell that you are asking yourself, what is this guy talking about? Demons? Yes, and much more than that. Vampires, ghosts, black magic, possession, entities, supernatural beings, and werebeasts. I believe you would be surprised to know that these things are around us all of the time, both the good and the bad. We are naive to think that it could be otherwise, when all around the world tales have been spun about such creatures of different origins than us. Now, I am not your typical acupuncturist. Sure, I treat aches and pains like all the rest, but I also treat things that are not so ordinary. You might say that I am a modern-day Constantine, but without all the religious mumbo-jumbo and the rather poorly conceived plot regarding angels. Mind candy for some, but not very real. For example, sit on the street or go to a party and observe the people around you. Who is interesting? Who is not? Who makes the hair on the back of your neck stand on end? Who simply makes you uncomfortable? Who is someone you feel like you can talk to? Who is seductive? And who makes your heart want to open? This is the beginning of the pattern analysis my master taught me many, many years ago. It is a skill we all have, and often do not pay much attention to. It is something I have spent my life honing. Take a few more steps down this path with more questions and more answers, and we arrive at the standard diagnoses, or data analysis. More questions, more answers, more awareness, and more probing, and we start to reach the end of what people might call the physical senses and start to enter the spiritual senses. This is where my world lies. This is the realm where the extraordinary interacts with the ordinary. Our society, for the most part, does not believe rationally in any of this, as it often cannot be scientifically proven. In other times, there were words for this: oracle, seer, magus, sorcerer, magician, wizard, priest, sage, hermit, monk, etc. All words which are still in our language, but little used. My master, who is hundreds of years old, would not call himself a master. He allows me to call him master as a way of respect, but he would say that compared to his master, my master was only a speck of cosmic dust. So too, I am not a master, only a man who comes from a long lineage of people that have spent their entire lives observing patterns. I know that reading this you want to know more about me and more about my master, but all in good time, all in good time. Sit back, enjoy a glass of Pinot Noir, and let me tell you about a few things before we get too far into this narrative. Think of this as your introduction to pattern analysis, or your monster manual, or your player's handbook. Simply, that before I take you too far down the rabbit hole, you have to see the world a bit more as I do. In the beginning, there was a bat who bit a man. Or was it a boy who fell into a cave with a bunch of bats? Just kidding. It was neither of these. In reality, in the beginning, there was nothing. Some call this the void. Others call this potential. Whatever you want to call it, there was nothing. Then at some point, there was something. This something became what we know as substance. I say substance here loosely, as it is merely the opposite of absence, and is not meant to describe things of substance or form as we know it. Substance then divided in two again to create yin and yang. Yin and yang created the duality as we know it today, where yin represents stillness among other things, while yang represents motion among other things. From here, things get complicated. But simply stated, all things can trace their roots back to this point. Think of life as a hierarchy of energy. The closer one is to this initial division, the more energetic its nature. The further away from this division, the more dense its nature. When one decreases vibration down below where humans vibrate at, one starts to see the appearance of what an astronomer would call a black hole. This is something so dense that it defies being able to be seen. The further one goes on to this continuum, the closer one gets to what the Christians would refer to as hell. One can also represent the emotions in this kind of continuum, with fear representing one extreme and love representing the other extreme. Therefore, when one achieves mastery, one only increases one's vibration in an incremental way. So as my master would say, mastery is simply a perspective from where the observer sits. Since my master is so much farther along than I am, he appears to be a master to me, but from his own perspective, he is simply a student on the path. When it comes to things that are dark, they follow the same idea, that a lesser evil is closer to our vibration, and a greater evil is farther away from our vibration. Therefore, a master of the dark arts is pursuing a path of decreasing their vibration in the direction of hell, and a master of the light arts is pursuing a path of increasing their vibration towards God. As you can see, if there are a few that have reached a higher state of being, and a few that have reached a lower state of being, this creates a dichotomy where those that are higher want to bring others with them, and those that are lower also want to bring others with them. Both sides believe that they have found the truth, and the masses sit between the two extremes. Therefore, the war between the light and the dark, simply stated, is a war where the stakes are you and me. This war, the war of illumination and disillumination, has been going on for millennia. Really, for as long as the universe could conceive of something and nothing. So, I have been talking about the most extreme, as we say in the art, the macrocosm. But let us bring it back a bit to the microcosm, meaning how this plays out on Earth. The living things of Earth all have souls. Yes, you heard me right. The living things, not just humans. Plants, animals, humans, rocks, rivers, volcanoes, mountains, lakes, and the very Earth itself. A soul is simply the part of us that records and reacts to the data of our lives, as in all of our lives. Reincarnation is a thing, just as your iPhone is a thing. If I asked you to tell me how your iPhone worked, the majority of people could not. They could show me what it did, the apps that were on it, how it turns on and off, how to take a picture and play music, but none of this tells me how it is what it is. What makes a phone work are two things: its physical structure and the code that runs the software. Everything we, the average people, use it for is part of the GUI, or graphical user interface, pronounced GUI. Basically, when we use a smartphone, we are allowing the GUI to do the heavy lifting of interacting with the code, and we press the screen and get the results we expect. It does not take faith to run a smartphone, it just is. Reincarnation is similar. The life that we are living right now is the GUI of how we interact with our soul. Do one thing and it causes a cascade of events. Do another and it causes a separate cascade of events. For each life that we live, the events of that life are stored in the soul, and those memories of different lives are running in the background of your life, much like the app that you forgot to close on your phone. Just because you cannot see or remember the lives does not mean that they are not there and that they are not influencing your life. As with your iPhone, it does not take belief or faith to have past lives. They are there whether you acknowledge them or not. All souls fall into this pattern, whether human, animal, vegetable, or elemental. Some people speak of the ongoing interaction of souls with each other as karma. You can call it what you like. But the simplest way to speak of souls is that everything is remembered and that for every action there is a reaction. The ability to act is the ability to have choice. Each choice leads us down a different path, and each path has its own consequences. This is what is called free will. That you have the ability to make your own choices and live by the results of your decisions. Now, as one becomes more elevated in vibration or more base in vibration, one can argue that one's choices become more and more limited as each choice is made. But you see, this in itself was a choice. Generally, we make choices that paint us into a corner, and then we have limited choices until either the paint dries or we learn to scale the walls around us. Choices are all around us every day. We choose what to eat, when to sleep, who to sleep with, what vice to consume, what kind of exercise we like, how to spend our money, how to spend our time, etc. Each of these sets us down paths of attraction and repulsion, and conversely, the absence of making choices also sends us down different paths. All of this, along with the behavior of countless other lives, again is stored in our souls. So humor me with all of this. Have you ever experienced deja vu, or felt like you already knew someone when you had just met them? Why do you think that this feeling was there? Or have you ever veered off your normal route simply because you had a feeling that you should go a different route? Where do you think these ideas come from? Unless you have recently interacted with the supernatural, the highest probability is that this feeling bubbled up from deep inside of you. This is how your soul communicates with you. The importance of soul and choice cannot be overstated, as these are the foundation pieces to the shape of our lives. The shape of our life dictates what we interact with, our health, and where we fall in the unseen war that is happening all around us. I pulled up to park on the street, paid my parking meter that is a not-so-hidden tax on all people who work downtown. I stuck my ticket in the driver's side window and started my 2-block amble to the office. The homeless people, for the most part, avoid me. The crows chattered at me as I walked by their perches in the small trees that line the Portland streets. As I walked by the burrito cart, the owner on his cell phone gave me a nod. Harvey, who runs the Indian food cart, greeted me with a big smile and a greeting of, "Hey man, how are you today?" I walked by the old black man who works for the parking garage, and he gave me a nod while smoking his 20th cigarette for the day. I walked by the computer repair place and the subterranean tattoo parlor, and finally crossed the street to my office. On the street outside is the older couple, who are out there every day smoking their cigarettes. They are the eyes and the ears in the neighborhood, and they know all the gossip about what is happening in the neighborhood. I said good morning as I walked by, then into my building, up the elevator, and to my office. I fumbled with my keys as normal, thinking that one of these days I had to put that colored ring on the office key. Finally, finding the right key, I put it in the lock, turned it, and opened the door. I walked in, put down my bag, took off my jacket, and flipped the sign from closed to open. It was time to work. Thank you for listening. The Amazon link for this book is below. I appreciate your listening to my reading.